Hi, I'm Lauren with the Pikes Peak Library District, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make mini banned books charms. So it's Banned Book Week, and to celebrate our right to read, we're going to be making mini charms of books that have been banned or challenged. So if you want to take a look at our cover templates, we've got those in the description below, along with the cardstock book template you're going to use to give some weight to your book. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the description list, and then let's jump into our project. Alright, so first things first, you're going to go ahead and collect your supplies. There's just a few things you're going to need for this project. The first is your banned book cover template and the little cardstock book cover that'll give a little more weight to your book. You're also going to need a needle and some thread. It can be any kind of thread. This is embroidery floss, but it doesn't really matter. A little bit of paper. I'm using blue paper, but any kind of printer paper will work. This is just to make your pages, so you just need a thin strip like this, and we're only going to cut about somewhere between 4 to 6 pages, so you don't need too much extra paper for this. Optionally, you could also get a key ring if you want to make this into a keychain, or a length of twine if you want to make this into a necklace, and then also a little jump ring. We're going to poke this into the spine of our book, and that's how we're going to make it into a charm. You can see in this finished one, I could just string something through this or put it on a keychain pretty easily. Pretty important to have a pair of scissors, just so you can cut out your templates and your book pages. And then of course you're going to need glue to glue everything together. So it's a pretty simple project. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Okay, so step one. First things first, you're going to go ahead and cut out whichever cover you want to use. I'm using The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And then you're going to cut out your template. Once you've got these both cut out, you're going to glue the cover onto the cardstock template. And I'm just using a glue stick, pretty simple. I'm going to go on both sides here. I cut my cover a little bit smaller than I meant to, but I'm just going to fold in the flaps further to deal with that. So no need to stress if you, like me, get a little over-eager when cutting and cut it too small. Just kind of stick it in place, smooth it down. We're just going to hold this in place to make sure that it's good and glued. Nice. And then real quick, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just fold these flaps in. And I'm just going to line it up so that that black line isn't visible, right? That's all that's important. And now when I flip it over, you can see once this is finished, you won't be able to see that top part at all. So go ahead and fold in all the flaps, and then we'll get started on making our pages. Okay, so you folded in all the flaps of your book, and now we've got to attach our pages in there. What I did was I just took a piece of paper, I kind of held it up to my book, and I said, if I folded it in half, how big would the pages be, right? And I like the idea of having them be pretty small in there. Basically, I just eyeballed it. And I said I want about 4 pages, so I drew 4 little rectangles, and now I'm going to snip them out. If you want a thicker book, you can do more pages. I wouldn't do more than 6 or 7, or it's going to get really hard to sew this together because you're going to be forcing a needle through all of these pages. So I would say 4 to 7 is kind of the sweet spot, depending on whether you want more or less pages. So you can see I cut out all 4. I've stacked them on top of each other. You can line them up with our book and see they don't hang over the edges, which is awesome. And then we can just fold them in half, right? So now that we've folded it in half, we can kind of fit it inside our book cover and see how it's going to look. If your pages are too long, it's really easy at this point just to grab a pair of scissors and trim down the edges, right? And if they're too short, just grab another sheet of paper and do it again. It's a pretty simple process, so it shouldn't be too bad. If you mess up a couple times, it doesn't use much paper. Now, when you have a sheet of paper folded in half, the way we folded this in half, that's actually called a folio in bookbinding. And when you have multiple folios sewn together, that's called a signature, and that's what the interior of a book is made of. So a full-size book would have a ton of signatures. this mini book really only needs this one little signature that we're making out of these, 4 to 6 folios. So we're going to go ahead and sew them together, and the stitch we're going to use in bookbinding is called a pamphlet stitch. And all that means is we're going to punch 3 holes in here, one in the middle, one in the top, one in the bottom, and then we're going to sew them together in a real simple stitch I'm about to show you guys. Once we've sewn it together, we'll be ready to glue our book block into our book. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you need your needle, right? And if you've never threaded a needle before, I'm just going to show you how that process goes. So you can see we've got the eye of the needle here at the top, and I've got my thread right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the thread. You can use water, you can spit on it, whatever you like. And then I'm just going to go ahead and poke it straight through the eye of the needle here. And once you've done that, you pull it through, and there you go, you've got your threaded needle. So once you've got this ready, just make sure you leave a little dangling tail like this so that you don't accidentally pull the thread off while you're sewing. All right, let's get started on our pamphlet stitch. Okay, so the pamphlet stitch is actually a really simple one. So we've got our signature, right? What we're going to do is we're going to take the needle and we're going to poke it into the middle right here in the crease. And you can just kind of force the needle down through it. You can see this is why you don't want too many pages, it'll be hard to poke through. But here we can see right through the middle, I have poked my needle, and I'm going to pull it a decent way through. Leave a tail hanging, because we're going to tie a knot at the very end with our tail. Now once you have poked through the middle, you'll have that tail coming out the top, right? And you'll have the thread here in the middle of the book. Now you're just going to poke back up by making another hole near the top. So just kind of poke the needle. You can see it goes through pretty easy. Hold on to this tail and then pull the stitch through. And you can see now we've got a big stitch in there, right? Now turn your signature over, and what you're going to do is just go all the way over, and you're going to poke a hole here near the bottom. Poke through exactly the same as we did before, right? And now you've got hole in the middle, hole in the top, hole in the bottom, pull through. You can see now we've got that one long stitch on the back, and inside we're just going to join this through the middle hole. So go ahead and take your needle, poke it through that same hole that you did for the first stitch, right? Pull through, and now you can see you've sewn a nice stitch right there. It looks really neat and even inside. And when you flip it over, you've got these 2 little tails coming off, right? So then all you need to do is remove the needle from here and just tie a really simple knot. So I'm just going to do my little right over left, left over right, right? Pretty easy. And then snip off the excess tail, and you have got your finished signature. Now that we've finished sewing our pages together, we're ready to glue them into our book. So we folded these flaps before. I'm just going to lightly unfold them here so that it's easier for me to glue this flat into the book. Take my glue stick again, flip my pages over. You can tell where the back is because it's got that knot, right? And just go over all of this with glue. And then go ahead and stick it in your book. And you're going to really press down with your fingers. We want to make sure that we've glued this in. And then once you've got that glued down, flip some of these pages up, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to glue these flaps down to really secure this in place. So again, same as what we were doing before, just run your glue stick over the inside of these flaps and then squish them down and really hold them in place. And do that on both sides. If you're having trouble getting it to stick, you could use Elmer's glue or something like that, but I've had a lot of luck just using my glue stick. So once you've got it all ready to go, you can hold down and then you'll be ready to fold your spine and just poke your hole to make your, to insert your jump ring. Folding the spine is a pretty simple thing to do, so you can see we've got the borders to the back and front cover, and really all we're doing is just folding them over and squishing them. And I like to wait until I've got my pages glued in to do this, just so I have a flatter surface to work on. If you folded this before, it's really not a big deal. So you just kind of squish the spine like this, and you will end up with your lovely finished book. So now that we've got our book, we've got our pages right, now all that's left is to put the little key ring in it. So that's pretty easy. What you'll do is you'll take your needle and you'll figure out where you want the hole to be. I'm going to do it right here near the top of the spine. Poke your needle through. You can see it comes out, and then you kind of just wiggle it around until you have a large enough hole to comfortably fit the jump ring through. So if you've got a bigger jump ring, you may want to really widen this. If you've got a little one like me, you probably don't need to do too much, and you're just kind of making these circular motions. There we go. Now you can see there's a nice hole in that. I just want to give you a quick note about opening the jump ring. It's really important when we open the jump ring, we don't just pull it apart, we actually open it back to front. So what I'm going to do is push with one finger, and there you can see we've kept these two sides aligned, and it's just got a little gap in it. That way when we close it, it's really as simple as pushing it closed, and we don't have to worry about leaving a gap. So all we have to do now is go ahead and put this jump ring through the little hole that we made with our needle. There we go. And then you can see I've got the two sides of my jump ring here, and I am just going to grab them with my fingers and push them together. And there you can see I've closed the jump ring, and now we are ready to string it with twine to make it a necklace, or put a key ring on it to make it a little keychain, and you will have your finished copy of The Hate U Give. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed making this project with us today. I've got a couple last quick notes for you. First of all, if you used really bright colored paper like me and you don't like the way these flaps look, you can just go ahead and cut out another square of whatever paper you used for the page and glue it over those flaps, and you'll cover it up and you won't be able to see where you attached the book. Another thing is, if you think you might use this as a keychain, or you might be handling it a lot and you're worried about the paper wearing down, you can brush it with Mod Podge and then prop it up to dry, and that'll give it a little bit of extra protection from the elements. So if you want to take a look at some of the different band book cover templates we have, just check the description. We've got the link to the download for that and for the cardstock book templates. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you had fun making some band book charms. Please share your creations with us and check out some of the other videos on our channel.